Hello everyone. I'm back. It's Tariq Sharei, the self-pronounced the Crohn's patient. I sincerely have to apologize because, to my great surprise, despite the very little content that I have uploaded over the past few months, I am shocked at what I consider to be excellent success to have over 8,000 subscribers already. I hope that's because I am providing something that speaks to people who either themselves deal with, live with, battle either Crohn's disease or one of the IBD family of diseases, be it ulcerative colitis or IBS, the irritable bowel syndrome, or it could be just autoimmune disease. I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that that's what attributed to this relative early success. I don't know where to start, so I'm going to try to go back in memory and summarize what happened since the last video. And I'll try to make that quick so that I can delve into the real issue that I want to talk about, which is Crohn's disease itself. After the last video, I took a turn for the worse. I ended up reaching out to my gastroenterologist. He was puzzled by the most obvious or the most blunt symptom was not the typical cramping or inability to eat, lack of appetite, or none of the classic Crohn's disease symptoms that I have experienced, lived with, learned to live with, or suffered miserably from over the past 33 years. This time it was very sudden, very fast, very quick weight loss. To put it in perspective, last July of 2023, I came down with COVID. At that time, I had lost about 7 to 10 pounds from where I have been stable for the past 15 years. I was always between 160 and 165 pounds, and I'm 6 feet tall, so I wasn't considered overweight. I tried to remain as athletic as possible. In my youth, I was very athletic. I played squash, I swam, I even competed in my youth. So I've never had a problem with my weight. But between May and July is when I got COVID, between May and July of 2023, I did notice that my pants, which are usually 32 by 32 waist, 32 inseam, and all my clothes are medium. Now I'm between May and July, I needed to put a belt or just let the pants slide down a little bit and keep pulling them up. After COVID, and I'm not trying to blame this on COVID, but I think it was just a coincidence. After COVID, I noticed by the middle of August that I am starting to dip into the mid 140s. So 143, 145, 146, but somewhere in there. And then I took a trip to Europe. So up until then, despite having lost all that weight, I would still get these bouts, prolonged bouts of energy and clarity of mind, a positive outlook on life, because pain was kind of under control. I was managing my food and diet, and I know what to eat, what not to eat, and how much to eat, and when to eat it. So a couple of friends of mine convinced me to get outside this box that I got too comfortable in. I just got too comfortable staying inside, being on social media, and the best way I described it was I was alive, but I was not really living life. I wasn't seeing my friends. I wasn't interacting with family. I wasn't, heck, having looked back at it, since between 2019 and 2023, I drove an average of 3,000 miles a year. 3,000 miles a year. So, long story short, I booked a trip. I went to Europe. I spent, 4 or 5 weeks. And while I'm at it, I stopped at London to get a second opinion from a very prominent, he's considered the second best professor and doctor, specialist on Crohn's, colitis, and inflammatory bowel disease in general. Why him, the second? Because the first, the top professor, his name is Peter Irving, was not available to see me during the time frame that I was going to be in London for. So I met his best pupil, his student, his second in command, if you will, and I got my second opinion, which basically cemented what my gastroenterologist here in the States have been telling me, that due to all the surgeries, don't expect to go back to, due to the surgeries, the number of surgeries and the extent of organ loss, meaning the amount of small intestines that was removed, and that specific section of the colon, primarily or namely the cecum, since they were removed, don't expect to have the quality of life that someone who has their whole digestive system in place. But I wanted to not let Crohn's win, and therefore I would always push myself. So that second opinion in London, that was in September, cemented things for me, and it gave me a lot of data to let's say meditate upon and really absorb and start making changes to my frame of mind, and then implement that, hoping it will ease the I can only call it suffering and misery that's been my life since 2014. So fast forward, I come back. Of course, I don't sit still for too long. In October, I go on a trip to Vegas to visit the Sphere, this new exhibition, or this new thing they built in Las Vegas, Nevada. If you haven't seen it, I would urge you to check it out. And if you can, go visit it. The Sphere is phenomenal. It is amazing. And then, of course, after all, it's Vegas. And from Vegas, I drove to the Grand Canyon, stayed there for 5 days, drove back to Vegas, and then came back to Portland. And during that whole time, my weight was still inching down. So now, from size 32 pants and medium shirts, I am now at 30 and then 29. And as of this recording, I'm at 28, which is extremely difficult to find with an inseam or length of 32, because I'm a taller man, a taller individual. So I came back. That's when I was alarmed that this rapid, unplanned weight loss, despite having not changed my diet, the frequency of my meals, the type of my meals, nothing has changed. No extra stress in my life, nothing. Some people thought that because of all the traveling and trips, that I was moving more than usual and therefore burnt more calories. But it doesn't justify over 25 pounds in weight loss. So I went to my gastroenterologist. I basically rang the alarm, and he wanted to do what gastroenterologists love to do. Of course, a full colonoscopy, upper endoscopy, CAT scan, all type of blood and samples work or labs. But also he referred me to the dietitian. The dietitian, I met with a dietitian, and the dietitian, after she looked at the results of my blood work specifically, she said, if I was your gastroenterologist, I would admit you to the hospital like right now. And when I questioned why, she said, because you might be prone to something called refeeding syndrome. We'll get to that later. So she said she was going to submit the report to the gastroenterologist, and if he agrees, then I should go and get admitted to the hospital. Mind you, I've spent so much time in hospitals, not just for surgeries. There's ER or emergency department visits where you spend 6, 8, 10 hours and then they discharge you, or sometimes they end up admitting you. So I'm not a big fan of hospitals at this point, and given my current situation, it's not it's not desirable, let's just say that. So I kind of stretch things until the gastroenterologist's office, the nurse, starts calling every day and saying, when are you going? They want you to go to the emergency department, to the ER, get checked out, and if they decide, meaning the ER doctors decide, that you should be admitted. That would be a good thing. Then we can get the colonoscopy, the CAT scan, and the upper endoscopy. And we can address all the deficiencies in phosphorus, magnesium, B12, B7, B3. I was borderline on the low side of all of these things. So eventually my best friend drove me to the hospital, and sure enough, I was admitted. And it was a good stay. Of course, the prep for colonoscopy, for those of you who have had colonoscopies, you know what I'm talking about. That colonoscopy was lucky number 13. And all kinds of different specialties. Interns came and saw me. Dietitians came and saw me. Nutritionists came and saw me. Gastroenterologists, internalists, or under training or whatever, teams would come, because they were all baffled by how am I smiling and cracking jokes and, taking it easy when my body is as frail as, let's exaggerate a bit and say, an 80-year-old man. That's what I look like. Like, I don't know, 80, but I look like a tall, extremely thin, to the point frail, older gentleman, older human being of the male gender. And then they discovered new things, like my pancreas is not working 100%, so now I need to supplement with Crohn, which are pancreatic enzymes. New ways to manage the pain and the cramping, all sorts of stuff. So, that's what happened, and that's where I've been. And until today, I have been through a lot of major episodes that that prohibited me from doing what I enjoy most. I enjoy making these videos. I enjoy looking forward to where these videos develop into some sort of or part of a community that can have interviews, podcasts, more information that we can provide based on both objective, scientific data, as well as telling our own subjective and personal experiences. Because in my experience, just talking about it in general is a good thing, is a positive thing. But it's even better when you talk to someone who either relates, as in has been there, or has had to, because of a relative, a partner, a neighbor, a cousin, whatever, had to learn more about Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, spastic colon, IBD in general, even IBS, and they can empathize. And of course, as I've said in previous videos, no sympathy, empathy. No no sympathy. What we want is empathy. So I'm hoping I will be able to, with these basic, I'm using 2 phones. I'm not recording in the studio with the high quality equipment that I have. There's not even a computer. These are just 2 phones. One AirPod that's recording on the second phone, and a wired microphone that's recording on this phone. I'll keep it short and I'll end it here. That's 20 minutes. If you have any questions, if you think this helps anyone you know, please forward it to them. I'm never going to say, please subscribe and like. I'm not doing this for any type of personal gain. And you need to hold me to that. I'm really doing it to be an outlet for people with Crohn's, colitis, IBD in general. And hopefully it develops into a podcast type of platform where we can host others that tell their story, talk about the things that I'll be talking about in the next video, like what medications am I on that are specific to Crohn's disease, and then what medications I'm on are to address the side effects that a Crohn's patient develops due to Crohn's disease. Like, how do you deal with pain that becomes your companion 24/7 for years? How do you handle muscle and abdominal cramps? How do you handle not being able to sleep for 3 days in a row besides 2 to 3 hours at a time? And then there's the whole mental impact, the psychological impact. It's almost like a cycle to where your body feels icky. And because it feels icky, it's extremely annoying, it's cumbersome, it's difficult, it's almost impossible to get up and do the most basic physical activity. So you stay in that one spot that, in my case, became my comfort spot. And now you keep thinking about, what have I done in my life to deserve this? To where all I do is just sit and maybe watch Star Trek 120 times. Yeah, I wonder how many people out there watch Star Trek, the original series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, all seasons, over 50 times. I can recite most Star Trek episodes. So that dampens your mood. I will dare say it. It depresses you. And that depression can last for days, and it can last for years. And then I personally discovered anxiety. And like, everybody talks about anxiety, but until I experienced anxiety that manifests itself physically, where you get a cramp, what we call butterflies in your stomach, or a knot in your stomach. It's basically in the middle of your abdominal area, and it holds and squeezes the whole day. You're only lucky if you fall asleep that it goes away, or that you don't feel it, but you wake up and boom, it reminds you, hey, I'm still here. And oh, back pain, hey, I'm still here. Sometimes you think, why do I wake up? What am I waking up for? But don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. And I hope I can be one example of why and how not to lose hope. Not how I do it specifically, but just the overall conceptual. We'll talk about that more next time. I'm gonna do 5 minutes and tell everybody about Crohn's disease in general and why it is a very dangerous and terrible disease. Crohn's disease is a disease of the small intestines only. And it is the result of a malfunction of the immune system. So therefore, it's an autoimmune disease, just like lupus, just like rheumatoid arthritis, and other autoimmune diseases. Basically, your immune system decides or gets confused and attacks certain organ and the tissue of that organ in your body. These attacks cause inflammation, and inflammation is typically healed by the immune system. So now you have this constant, unexplained attack on the same tissue until it gets swollen. Inflamed, which means it gets swollen. So imagine this is the diameter of your intestines. The immune system is attacking the tissue. I don't know if it attacks it just from the outside or also from the inside. But what happens is this tissue becomes inflamed, so it swells. And the best way I can demonstrate its swelling is this, right? So now the diameter shrunk, the diameter got smaller, yet you're still eating the same amount of food. And that amount of food has to go through now a tighter pipe. So what does it do? As it goes through, it scratches it, which makes it bleed and produce mucus. And then it heals, so now there's scar tissue. That scar tissue builds up and makes that narrowing permanent. So imagine that happening in a foot of your small intestines. And that foot of your small intestines happens to be where vitamin E is absorbed, or vitamin C and iron, because every section of the small intestines is specialized in absorbing a certain element or mineral or protein or vitamin. Over the years, the tissue gets so, I call it raw, it gets just so inflamed that it either shuts, and that's what they call an obstruction, And an obstruction, if it's not caught in time, can kill you. Or it gets so narrow that nothing can go through, so things back up, people start vomiting, all sorts of things. And unless you were on biologics, which is a medication, family of medications I'll talk about in the next video, or one of the next videos. If you're not on that, they might try to treat you with prednisone. Prednisone is the magic medication for people with inflammatory diseases in general. Maybe they can reduce that inflammation and things kind of open up. But if that, in my case, it got too late and they had to go in, open your abdomen and cut. They can cut half a foot or 3 feet. And you can just imagine now, in a mechanical way, how will your digestive system function having lost a certain section that performed a specific task. I hope that gives just a general idea, and we'll dive into details. Again, I hope you find this beneficial, because it encourages me to hear from you, and it helps me push through what I'm going through to make more videos, and hopefully soon start connecting with others who have IBD. I don't care if it's Crohn, colitis, whatever, or inflammatory diseases. I really don't care. And we can start setting up podcast style interviews with patients, and if circumstances merit, we can invite specialized or specialists. My own doctor, my own gastro, is very open to come on and explain to us everything we need to know about Crohn's from a scientific perspective, and list out and explain all the current medications and what is in progress in research right now. So please comment on the video. I will put an email. That email is going to be just for the Crohn's patients channel and podcast. Feel free to email me. Until the next video, I wish you all peace, tranquility, no pain, no suffering, and all the best food you can tolerate.